The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning here at 5 a.m. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher.
Our time now is 5:02, and this morning we have an update on an officer-involved shooting from yesterday morning. The shooting happened just after midnight yesterday near South High School. Police say the driver of the SUV involved in that pursuit that ultimately led to the passenger in the vehicle being shot by an officer has been identified as Ismael Gardea. Police say they tried pulling him over, but he took off. Officers chased the driver until he crashed into a pole at Plans Park. Gardea was arrested, but police say another man got out of the car and ran off. Officers chased that man, they say, and that's when police say the man started shooting at officers.
The officer discharged their firearm, fatally striking an adult male. A firearm was recovered from the adult male.
Meantime, Pastor Jesse Rodriguez and his wife woke up to the sound of gunfire.
I was wondering if they were shooting, I hope there was no stray bullet that come this way. It's a scary thing. It's happening so close to home.
Rodriguez says Plans Park is so violent, none of his family members walk outside past their driveway. Meantime, 17 News data shows there have been at least 4 deadly officer-involved shootings in Kern County so far this year. Last year, there were 8. Gardea faces charges of evading police and driving without a license. BPD says Officer Brock Peterson was the one who shot the man who shot at officers. Police say Officer Peterson was wearing a body cam during the shooting, and the department will release that video at a later time.
Your time now is 5:04, and making news around town, the Woolworth building on 19th Street in downtown Bakersfield is now a cultural resource, and it will be placed on the Bakersfield Register of Historic Places. A resolution approving the designation was passed last night by the Bakersfield City Council. The Woolworth building was recommended for a cultural resource designation from the Historic Preservation Commission at the public hearing last month. The Woolworth building, which is currently closed for a major renovation, completed construction in 1950 as a department store with a lunch counter. By placing it on a National Historic Registry, it will, among other things, guarantee the lunch counter cannot be removed.
And speaking of historic, the Bakersfield City Council made history last night, confirming the first African-American woman to the Planning Commission. Candace Neal graduated from Berkeley School of Law and has worked for several law firms throughout the state. Since returning home, Neal has worked for the Kern County Superintendent of Schools as the Senior Associate Counsel. She was nominated by Councilmember Eric Arias, who says Neal's extensive education and background will serve her well on the Planning Commission.
And the City Council last night also approved a proposed amendment to the city charter that could change the way police and fire chiefs are hired. The amendment removes all language that currently requires fire and police chiefs to be appointed from within their respective departments. That means if passed, the city could hire chiefs from outside Bakersfield. The measure goes before voters in November.
Parents of students at a local elementary school continue to ask the city, county, and school district to install a crosswalk before they say a child is killed. Plans for a crosswalk near Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School are in the works, but it will not be finished until about a year from now. Parents say it needs to be much sooner than that.
And I take my kids to school every morning. It's dangerous. The cars go fast and everything, and sometimes they don't slow down. It's not right. They pointing the fingers at the wrong person. The city should be the one that's changing and putting the crosswalk.
City of Bakersfield Public Works says a crosswalk will be placed with flashing lights next summer on Cheatham Avenue. However, parents say the proposed crosswalk is too far out of the way, and instead, they say they want the crosswalk to be in front of the apartments. Some say many drivers will not stop speeding, and they're asking for at least the speed to be enforced, especially when kids are coming and going from school. You can reach out to Bakersfield Public Works to give your thoughts on the needed crosswalk by visiting our website, kget.com.
The clock is ticking for the Fairfax School District Board to respond to a report that alleges there's enough evidence to support possible fraud and mismanagement charges against former board president and current board member Palmer Moland. Fairfax School District trustees gathered for a special meeting last night to discuss the scathing report by the Kern County Superintendent of Schools office. After a 30-minute closed session, the board went on to review their response to the report due tomorrow. In their response, the board explains how they've taken action based on recommendations by KCSOS and make it clear that if the allegations against Moland are true, he must reimburse the district for the cost of his campaign signs. Criminal charges can also be pursued by the Kern County District Attorney.
Everybody else on the board voted for to pay me the funds, and I wish that someone, even the person who was the president with 12 to 14 years experience, didn't, say, hey, this might be something against the law.
The school board approved the district's response, with trustees Moland and Virginia Lawson voting against it. Trustees Lawson and Victoria Cornell lost hope that the board would reach an agreement and therefore asked that the council and Superintendent Regina Green gather more information to determine Moland's future. Moland has agreed to step down if it's determined he abandoned duties as a trustee.
5:32 is our time now, and we continue to follow the trial of Matthew Queen. He is the man accused of killing Michael Holsenbake, a member of the so-called Bakersfield Three. Matthew Vandecastile took the stand once again yesterday. He said he did not hesitate when Queen, his best friend at the time, asked if he could use his garage one night to question Holsenbake about a stolen gun. He thought Queen would intimidate Holsenbake, make him tell the truth about what happened to the missing gun. On the night in question, Vandecastile said he never saw Holsenbake and did not look in the garage. The next day, however, he went inside and noticed something different: a large red grease stain on a wooden shelf. Prosecutors say that stain tested positive for blood matching Holsenbake's DNA. You can read much more about yesterday's witness testimony on our website, kget.com.
Also in your 17 Court Watch, a suspected gang member was convicted on Tuesday in a deadly robbery that happened New Year's Eve 2020. 20-year-old Anthony Daniel was found guilty of first-degree murder and other charges in the killing of 18-year-old Emmanuel Arachiga, according to court documents. Arachiga was shot on Marin Court, where he and his girlfriend had reportedly gone to buy a gun. Daniel faces 69 years to life in prison at his June 15th sentencing.
A San Luis Obispo County judge decided yesterday that the Kristen Smart murder trial will take place in Monterey County. It has been just over a year since Paul and Ruben Flores were arrested in connection with the disappearance of Cal Poly student Kristen Smart in 1996. Last month, Judge Craig Van Royen said it's probably the most highly covered case in the region's history, and finds it likely that Paul and Ruben Flores would not receive a fair and impartial trial in San Luis Obispo County. Both men have pleaded not guilty. They're due back in court next Monday.
5:34 is your time now. The man accused of stabbing and killing a teen at Stockton High School appeared in court for the first time yesterday. 52-year-old Anthony Gray was arraigned in a San Joaquin County courtroom for murder charges as the family and supporters of 15-year-old Alicia Reynaga looked on. Gray's accused of trespassing onto Stagg High School in Stockton Monday and attacking Reynaga in front of other students and school staff. Following yesterday's arraignment, loved ones and the district attorney expressed sadness and anger. Gray's expected back in court May 16th.
Making news around the state, a small plane crashes along the side of the 210 freeway in Southern California, killing at least one person. And investigators are trying to figure out what went wrong. The twin-engine Cessna went down next to the freeway at about 12:30 yesterday afternoon, not too far from Whiteman Airport. First responders and others say it appeared to hit some trees before crashing. People who lived nearby rushed to the site and found the pilot dead inside. He was the only person aboard.
A warning from cannabis industry leaders yesterday that the state's legal marijuana market is on the verge of collapsing due to overregulation and high taxes. Marijuana sellers say they need the state to ease up on the amount of taxes it collects and some regulations, with the state's industry on the brink of collapse.
We're in a point where the market has actually stopped growing. The number of licensed dispensaries has decreased.
Experts say statewide, anywhere between 30% to nearly half of the price customers pay for legal products is going to state and local taxes. Because of these higher prices, they're losing customers. Several bills are circulating through the state capitol to ease taxes and make cannabis more accessible across the state. Hearings are scheduled to consider cutting these taxes for the cannabis industry. Those dates are set for April 26th and May 4th.
Earth Day is tomorrow, a day to take stock of the impact humans have on the environment. And here in Kern County, one of those impacts is pretty visible more often than not. 17's Chris Burton is in studio this morning and has more on the effects of poor air quality here in the Southern Valley and what we can do about it. Chris, good morning.
Alex, good morning. Our county has some of the most densely polluted air in California. Some of that pollution, like wildfire smoke and dust, is relatively unavoidable, but with Earth Day tomorrow, it's worth taking a look at what we can change. The haze that often settles over Kern County does more than obscure our mountains.
The small particle matter that goes into your lungs unfortunately damages the lungs over a long period of time.
Bad air quality is a serious public health hazard. Here in Kern, the danger is higher. Our average air quality is third worst in the state, according to USA.com. The American Lung Association recently gave Kern an F rating, the worst possible for unhealthy air.
In this Central Valley, it is a valley, literally a valley. We dip down, and so unfortunately, many times the weather systems that pass over our state serve as like a lid to trap underneath that system and those clouds, whatever you create in the way of pollution.
What creates that pollution? In the Central Valley, two major sources: wildfires in the summer and transportation emissions year-round. Now, things are improving. This graph shows the level of nitrogen-based emissions in the Valley Air District. You can see this major reduction here in stationary sources, this blue bar here, in the 40 years that they've been tracking. Those are things like factories, refineries, as pollution regulations have taken effect. But now, the vast majority of these emissions are caused by transportation, which the Valley Air District hopes to cut down. Valley Air is working with companies who transport goods through the Central Valley, pushing them to transition fleets of vehicles to electric or low emissions. But Hanks says individuals can do their part too.
It's going to take that sort of conversion from the very big shops, really huge manufacturers, all the way down to, getting that nice electric vehicle for that one engine, one truck shop that also needs it.
Carpooling, cutting idling time, and eliminating wood-burning fireplaces are other great ways to save our air. Well, as wildfire season approaches, we know it's on the way. It is good to know what the air has in store for you any given day, so we like to direct people to purpleair.com. It's a great resource for up-to-the-minute air quality readings around our county.
Yeah, we all use that. It's really nice to be able to look and see, okay, well, is it bad right now? Maybe I can go out this morning instead of later this afternoon when I'm expecting it to be a little worse.
I'm not going to lie. I think, living here, Maddie, you've lived here your whole life. We've both lived here our whole lives. And I think you get accustomed to just, it's another bad air day, no big deal. But it is. I mean, it is a huge deal for our environment, but for our health as well. And it is something that we need to remind ourselves to just be cognizant about before we're doing activities like going outside, running, or doing, even on some of those bad air days when the air quality is so unhealthy, you can actually see the particles in the air. Ugh. That's just terrible to breathe.
I know, yeah.
Exactly. Well, that's why Kev gives his, air quality update every morning. It's because it's so important to understand, hey, how is the air quality today? How's it going to affect me and the activities that I want to do?
All right, Chris, thanks so much.
Thanks.
All right, switching gears in your 17 Health Watch. Across the country, STDs continued to go up during the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic. But new data shows Kern County actually saw a decline in STD transmission. According to data from public health officials, Kern County saw drops in chlamydia, gonorrhea, primary and secondary syphilis, and congenital syphilis in 2020. At the same time, rates of gonorrhea and syphilis went up across the country. Public health officials say our decline was only temporary, noting the number of STDs cases have since increased in Kern County.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.